What's happening, Andy? Here, I am joined today by Jim Coriddi of Ricoh. How you doing today, Jim?
All right, Andy, how's it going?
It is going good. It is going really well here in Rochester. We're a little behind you. We've got some cold gray weather we're sending your way. I understand it's pretty nice down. You're in New Jersey today. Yes, you look like you're at the office.
Yeah, I'm in. So Rico's new building is in Parsippany, New Jersey, and yeah, we're actually going to have this building be a very central area, customer experience center, in the not too distant future. So it's a totally new building. It's great to be here. It's just great to interact with folks. It's a place now. Some of our dealers have come to visit. So anyway, so this is kind of the central point for us on the dealer division.
Well, I have to get down there and visit that. I know that was sort of on the
Absolutely.
roadmap right before all of this happened, and you moved out of that place. It was 5 Diedrich. I still remember the address actually, right? And so just when you get into these new beautiful offices, this new customer experience center, we get hit with this little virus, and next thing you know, I can't go visit your new offices. So they're still new. We'll get down there and see them eventually. And I did just actually see you at kind of see you at BTA. You were on that panel with Bob Goldberg. He was discussing with you and Mike Marusik of Sharp and Laura Blackmer from Konica. Had a great panel on supply chain and everything from supplies to how you're pricing your cost per page programs, and just an awesome panel at that event. I thought maybe we'd follow up. I know you've got a lot going on that you didn't get to talk about that day, and maybe we chat about a little, find out what's happening at Ricoh. We're winding down the year here, but we've got a nice kickoff coming in January, and why don't you give us a little update? What's happening in your world?
Sure. Well, I mean, similar to the panel that you mentioned, the big thing is communications. I mean, now more than ever, so much is going on. The situations with the global supply chain issues, the just how the market, the environment, the business has continued to change, and our industry is so dependent on the partnership between the manufacturer and our dealers. The ability to communicate is a big deal. So when you say, hey, what's going on, one of the major things we're doing right now, we call it Connection 21. We just had our most recent event a couple of days ago, and what it's all about is different ways to communicate how, together with our dealers, we're going to initiate and accelerate the digital transformation. That's really what it's all about. It's time to stop talking about it and pontificating about it. What we're doing. So, for example, we kicked off the main topic in September was digital transformation. Our keynote was Brian Solis, and he was looking at digital transformation from the human element standpoint. We always think of digital transformation as it relates to technology, but it's big change. So we're sharing a lot of that with our dealers. And just the other day, the topic was, a very pertinent topic, security. And the keynote speaker there, it's funny, a guy by the name of Kevin Mitnick, who was known as the world's most wanted hacker. And he had just amazing stories about things that he's been involved in through the years. He's now legit, right? And now he provides a service to identify, security vulnerability. So we used as kind of the kickoff, and then we took advantage of this virtual platform to be able to have breakouts with sales professionals as well as separate ones for marketing and dealer principals. So this platform really has been working out very, very well. We've had good feedback, and we're using it to introduce certain topics that our field folks then follow up with as far as what the deliverables are going to be, and how we're going to look to market some of these solutions.
So Connections 21. So this was it a multi-day event? It sounds like it was. You've got some sales components to it, some marketing components. So was this a dealer event or an internal event for Ricoh employees? who was at it, how many people attended it, and how, what was the flow? Is it
It's
days,
purely
weeks?
focused. It's purely focused on our dealers, because of a lot of it being virtual. You have to do it in sound bites. So we're going to have a lot of these events as opposed to us all going out to Las Vegas for 2.5 days and that's it for a year. These are going to be done regularly every 6 weeks or so. The first session lasted about an hour. The breakouts were about 45 to 50 minutes each, but they're jam-packed with all very real world information. So when we talk about a security solution, we had one of our dealers presenting an actual sale, what went into it, why, how it worked. We had another dealer come up with a totally different type of solution. We had our chief security officer talk about a day in the life of being a CISO, and what that means. And the whole idea was to have this very condensed communication, to give our dealers a feel for what we're selling into, the value and the importance of something like security. And then the rest of the follow-up, like I said, will be at the field level with some of the deliverables that we're going to be able to provide.
So how many people would be in these sessions?
Well, we had a total enrollment of 1,150 individual. Oh yeah, no, it's crazy. And so each breakout maybe had about four. And when we finally did the breakout, it was about 450, 500
Holy
folks
cow.
in each. Yeah, and like my thought on it is, as much as trust me, we all want to get together, right? And I have no problem being in Las Vegas, kind of like it. But at the end of the day, we're able to now connect with folks that would not normally be part of that meeting in Las Vegas.
Well, the sales reps, right? The geo sales reps, the specialists, the major account reps. Typically, unless you're management, you're generally not at that meeting, right? So, I mean, that's always great stuff at those meetings, but you just have to wonder, you show so many different things. How much is a dealer principal able to bring home and remember? They probably picked 3 things or a few things that really stood out to them, but you've got a whole show of content and collaterals that they just never even get to at times. So to be able to take this down a level to the sales force, right, and the technicians who are out in the field, and just the people who are out in the street, the feet in the street, it's another level down, which I would think, especially in this day and age where you're sharing accounts with a lot of competitors, mind share, right? So you're really able to talk at a different level, bring these guys into the loop on what's Ricoh's message, where are we going, and how can we help you, right? So that's something you really never had the ability to do in the past.
No doubt, and you bring up a great point. It allows us to do things more, and I don't want to call them sound bites, but we could be very focused and then follow up from those focused topics. And it's especially important now because as we go through this digital transformation, there's so many things that are changing. There's so many elements that we have to do differently. It's not like some years ago where we brought everybody together and we're talking about print devices and here's some bells and whistles, and it's at a whole nother level now. So that ability to, and the name connections, that ability to connect in very focused environments and then follow up on it, that's the key. So we'd love to be together with our dealers, but you take advantage of what you can, make the best of it.
Well, you're starting. I mean, you're out there in the field, right? It's not like you're not visiting people. Ricoh right. Dealers are seeing their I don't know if you still call them DSMs or what do you guys call them?
You're way behind. They're business consultants.
But they still see these people coming through and visit. I'm sure you've been out in the field, out and about here and there. But you can't be everywhere, right? And that's where a program like this comes in. Now, is this, was this a one-time event, or is this an ongoing thing and you have a monthly call, or how does it work?
This is going to be ongoing throughout. The first step of this is throughout our fiscal year 21, which goes through March.
Yep.
And at that time, and as we see how things progress, we'll make some decisions on how we're going to be communicating from there. But right now, it's earmarked for having an event every month and a half or so through the end of March.
Well, exciting. Now this isn't going to replace events, right? We're going to get back someday. We'll do a live event. Are we saying, maybe at some point we'll be back in Vegas, but probably not in the next 6 to 12 months, I would imagine.
Right. No, exactly. And what we want to do too is, depending how things evolve, we're probably going to look to kind of sneak up on it. More and more, even with Connections 21, we would like to start adding in some local elements. So right now, the way we're doing it, what was kind of cool is we had a number of dealers that had viewing parties. Like you watch the NFL draft. And so there were quite a number of them, quite frankly. And in a lot of cases, our field people are there to make the event a little more interactive, to make the event, a little more meaningful for the individual dealership. So that's kind of what we're doing now. But we'd like that to start developing into maybe having then local gatherings as we're doing the overall, virtual event. So, like I said, we're gonna keep looking to move in that direction. We just have to kind of play on the environment.
So was any of this infrastructure in place before before the beginning of all this, or is this a whole new platform, new program that you guys started? Did you build it, or is this in partnership with someone? How did you build this? How did you put this together?
Well, it wasn't anything that was planned. This was, it's funny. There's so many different buzzwords coming out of the pandemic, right? We're all, we're all in a position where we have to pivot, and
I was going to say,
we have all these words, right?
Pivot's
the one word that really resonates with I think how the business needs to go, and that is agile. We need to be agile, because the thing about it is change is going to continue to happen. A year ago, when you and I were speaking, who knew what things were going to be like today, right? So the one thing we know is things are going to continue to keep evolving, continue to keep changing. So we have to build our relationships with the dealers. We have to build the way in which we communicate and we connect. We're going to just have to be, agile. And so this, to answer your question, this just came out of necessity. And there's no partnering. It's a lot of people working really hard to put together good content, and having tremendous support from our field people working with our dealers. And we're so fortunate. Our dealers are very willing to connect. We just have great partnerships. And when we started this, it took off from day one.
Well, you guys really, right before this pandemic, you had a big shift in the company where you really put a huge focus on that. You put all your eggs in the dealer basket, essentially, or most of them, right? And it's a different era for Ricoh with these dealers, and you took their partnership to a new level. Moving forward, how are they doing, for the next 6 to 12 months? Everyone's got the same issues. You're no different than any of your competitors. You've got, some hot spots. You've got some areas where you probably have product, probably some areas where you wish you had product. How are you getting through this? How are your dealers getting through it? What are your wait lines look like? Is this something you see an end? Are you air shipping? I'm guessing you probably are. How is Ricoh getting around some of the things that are causing other companies to struggle in other industries?
Sure. Well, first of all, from an overall standpoint, and we work with our field team on this a lot. Our focus is we want to be the best manufacturer partner as it relates to managing through this inventory shortage. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned communication before, we're doing regular types of communications that range from an overall monthly inventory update video that we send out to, most importantly, is we're providing, we have regular meetings with our supply chain group, and we're providing information 2 to 3 times a week to our region leadership to have conversations with our dealers to literally look at things deal by deal. We have a lot of dealers that are in situations where a lot of money's tied up because they don't have these 2 units on a $200,000 deal or this 1 unit on a $50,000 deal. So we're trying to work as best we can to make sure we're doing everything possible to be able to take care of those deals. Are we doing air shipments? Absolutely. We've done a number of different air shipments. We've done things like even coming out of the port when we finally, when the containers finally get out of the port, where normally you put them on trains. 2 weeks later, they get to the local distribution facility. Well, now we're putting them on trucks, and we're setting the trucks up to have tandem drivers so they drive all night. I mean, we're doing everything and anything. And of course, we're doing substitutions, cost, to the side. We're doing everything, we're doing everything we can. The good news is, I think, is that our dealers are extremely resilient. And even though it's been very, very difficult, they're finding ways of doing things with unfortunately, extending leases, doing refis, selling used, doing everything we can. But this is an issue that is not going away anytime real soon. The other day, and I got a few, YouTube, sessions sent to me from dealers that saw the 60 Minutes segment this past Sunday on the California ports. Now, those ports, again, they do 40% of everything that comes into the United States goes through those ports. They are so backed up, and this segment took everybody through that. The thing you have to understand is that's once the product gets in the water and gets to the West Coast. The supply chain issue is starting all the way back to the manufacturer because of the shortage of semiconductors, the chips, because of polyplastics, things of that nature. So there's a lot of different things everybody's managing through. The best thing I could say is, certainly, knock on wood, the aftermarket with Ricoh has been solid. Not that we don't have outages here and there, but that lifeblood is being taken care of. The polyplastics do not, impact the production product, the high-end product. There's other things we have to work through, but that's going forward. That's going to be a little more positive. But Andy, it's not ending anytime soon. That's why the biggest thing we're doing is working very closely with our dealers, providing as much transparent communications as we possibly can, and then managing this thing right down to the deal by deal level.
Do you think it's going to change how people sell? I mean, it used to be you'd go into a deal 3 months out, right? And you'd kind of renew them a little bit early just so you didn't wait to the point where they made that call and called 2 other companies to bring into the deal. You'd go in 3 months early, right? But do you think now, because, I know in every other part of my life, there are things that I need that are a lot of times 6 months out, and I've already started putting in orders for things. I won't get into the list, but just household appliances and things like that, where you're going to need one. So now you're at the point where, okay, maybe sales reps are going back in 6 months out saying, look, it might take 6 months to get this equipment. Let's get it in process. Let's get the order going. I mean, are we going to see a shift in the way that we're selling, or is it just, nimble is going to win at the end of the day and just do what you got to do, get what you can get, and move on from there?
I hope, again, we use the word agility, and we use the word, the thought process of you got to take advantage what opportunities you have. I hope it's changing the mentality of the sales process to include now going in ahead of time, talking at a deeper level about your customer's overall workflow. So in between, before you're worrying about the print device, let's talk about what's going on within your workflow, how you're managing your information. Start that dialogue. And then when you start bringing in the planning process for the print device, it becomes a more natural discussion. But at the same time, what you've accomplished is you've dug yourself deeper into that organization. You're putting yourself in a position where you could expand the revenue opportunity with that particular customer. And that's what I'm hoping is starting to be conditioned in the mindset of the sales professionals.
Well, so
Having that wider business discussion rather than just talking about the print device and when the lease is up.
Well, to your point on that, what an opportunity this is, where you've had most, if not all, of your customers, right, have had such a disruption on how they get their jobs done, and they probably have a good chunk of their sales force, or not sales force, but their company that's working remotely and doesn't know when they're coming back, or may come back with a blended approach where they're working a little, so these are companies that need help in getting that set up properly and most importantly, securely, right? I mean, that's really, I think, where the opportunity is, or, the threat to that customer who's sending everyone home. If they're not secure, you've been working so hard as a customer to keep the bad guys out when it was all under one roof. And it was still challenging at that point, but now you've got endpoints and vulnerabilities everywhere, right? I mean, if you've got 100 people working for you and 75% of them are working remotely most of the time, that's an IT nightmare. And so fortunately, our viewers on this, that's an area where they can come in and help. And hopefully this supply chain thing does ease up. Again, I agree with you. I don't see it ending anytime soon. Hopefully maybe spring, summer, we start seeing some normalcy start to show its face. I know, there's a lot of talk, a lot of companies like you are looking at other options as far as maybe alternatives from those ports in Southern California. Maybe there's some others. I mean, it's going to take a while to get those online, but we're all looking at this as maybe we shouldn't have all of our hardware coming in through one place, because what if something like this happens again, or just a storm, a tsunami, or something, just shuts those ports down, an electrical problem, who knows, right? But you can't have, we've all learned, you can't have everything coming in through one point where, if one thing happens, or if you're using one chip, or if you're using one type of plastic, we've all learned some lessons, I think, in the last couple of years on, we need to be more flexible, and we need to have a plan B in place. And so long-winded way to come back at it is these dealers, these resellers out there that are watching this and reselling for you, that plan B is your opportunity, right? I mean, that customer who needs to deal with a workforce that's completely different than they set up for 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when you sold that last piece of equipment, they're ripe for some consulting, and they need some help. And who else is going to do it? You or the IT company, or you might be both in this case. But there is an opportunity, I think, for our reseller community to really, like you said, dig deeper in these accounts and become even more of a partner with their customers.
And that's where, I mean, when you look at Ricoh's direction as a company, like you said, there's been a lot of change. As of April, we have a new CEO, Carsten.
Yeah, Carsten. I interviewed Carsten. I need to get another one with him to follow up. Yep.
And he's really brought in not only a breath of fresh air from a standpoint of, he's Ricoh's first CEO that actually comes from a sales background. And he's all about coming in and talking about growth, but he's talking about growth in a very intelligent way. How do we expand the base of what we do? How do we bring in, though, like I said, managing the overall information? I think what you're going to find is Ricoh's going to be doing more types of acquisitions. And I don't mean dealer acquisitions. I mean IP acquisitions, similar to the DocuWare business. And DocuWare is our dealers are absolutely crushing it in a very positive way with DocuWare. Well, there's a lot more of that coming down the road. So we need our dealers to be having those more expansive business discussions now. That's going to feed into the future we all need to have. I was just on a call with, I mentioned before what we call our RDNA, right? So this is our next generation dealer leaders. right? So there's the dealer principal. They'll have a daughter or a son that's going to take over the business eventually. Well, we have about a dozen folks that are involved in that program, and we're talking about where this whole thing needs to go, how Ricoh needs to better plug in to our dealerships to be able to bring these new solutions in. And it's very exciting. And that group is extremely excited about being part of this dialogue, because they're helping to design our future together, because the partnership is very, very important. Ricoh we could acquire all the companies we want. If our dealers are not in line with what needs to happen, it's not going to move. It's not going to move the needle. So it's a tough time right now because of the issues we're having with the supply chain, but it's also an extremely exciting time because customers and clients are more open to want to talk to us about how to improve this changing business environment that they now have to manage.
Well, BTA was formed coming right out of the last big flu thing that we had in the early 1920s, right? So 95 years later, it's still here. It's thriving. The dealers that are members of it are doing extremely well. They're well-known and respected companies in their communities, and a lot of those are good partners of Ricoh. So, I think going forward, the sheer entrepreneurship spirit of these companies will, keep pushing many of them forward. I have no doubt we'll get through the supply chain issues. It's a pain in the ass. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's just it stinks for everybody, not just in our industry, in every part of your life. And it's just one of these things that we're going to look back on, and when we're older and grayer, and we'll talk about how bad things were for those few years. But I think we're also going to have some stories about some companies that came out of it and were really, really strong and did really well. And and there's going to be some stories to be told at the end of this. And I think there's going to be a lot of good ones.
No doubt. And I have the same level of optimism that you have, Andy. It never ceases to amaze me how these entrepreneurs work through so many different kind of challenges, that we've had through the years. And like I said, there's a lot of change going on right now, but with that change, there really is very significant opportunity for our industry.
I couldn't agree more.
That's what we're looking for.
I couldn't agree more. Jim Coriddi, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Any last shout outs, any last message you want to leave everyone with?
No, again, just all I would say is I'm not sure. Well, you're usually pretty quick. You air things pretty quick. So I'll just say to everyone, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
With all our challenges, we do have an awful lot to be thankful for. So Andy, thank you. I appreciate the time.
I agree. Thank you so much, Jim. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching this, and we will catch up with you soon, Jim. Take care.
Take it easy.